I feel truly blessed opportunities that present themselves because I didn't get to WWE. If I had gone back to wrestling, I wouldn't have had a chance to become the commentator.
When commentary is great, you really don't notice it.
People have no idea how much nuance there is to it.
You said wrestling happens between the moves.
You remember moments. Those moments often happen between moves.
You had the offer from WWE, then it got rescinded.
The doctor said to me, you need surgery. I said I didn't need surgery. He said I can't recommend that we hire you.
Why is Bryan Danielson one of the best wrestlers in the world? Magic. How long have you been doing this?
It's been a hobby of mine for the longest time. I did ask you to choose a random wrestler.
Yes.
2, 1.
What? The man, the myth, the legend himself. I'm so glad we're finally making this happen.
Mm-hmm. Took a while.
Who knew that we both lived here in LA?
We do now.
We both know that now, and here we are recording in LA.
Yeah, right.
How long's LA been home for you?
March of 2012, I made the big trek across this great country of ours.
From Florida, right?
From Florida.
I also moved here from Florida.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Happy LA-iversary then to you.
Indeed. Yeah. It has its pros and its cons, as I'm sure you know.
A little bit of both, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like everybody has an LA story of like, I had to move here because, you know, if there'd be more opportunities for me. With you doing magic, and we're going to obviously get into that. The Magic Castle's here. That's legendary.
It is. It's the premier magic establishment in the entire world. So, yeah.
How does a layman like myself get to see what happens inside the halls of the Magic Castle?
Friends who are magicians.
Oh,
so, there we go. We'll see. We'll see how this interview goes, Chris. And maybe we can consider ourselves friends after that.
Your voice is just so soothing. You know.
Thank you.
We hear it so often on commentary. It's nice to be able to also see you while you're speaking, doing this. It's just, what a lovely voice.
I appreciate that. You know, some people would probably disagree with you. There's been people in my career who have disagreed with you, certainly, but we'll leave that as it is.
Do you feel like you've lost any bit of your accent since living here in the US?
Not the slightest. I've even took classes to try to get rid of it.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I took a class to try to get the American accent because, you know, there was a time where I was looking about getting into acting and stuff, and there are a lot of great British actors who do incredible American accents, right?
Probably better than some Americans.
Right.
Like when people find out that Christian Bale is not American or that Tom Hardy's not American, they're like, what?
It's incredible. It really is incredible. But I took a class, and not to impute the class or the teacher, but the best I could do was Forrest Gump. And not a good Forrest Gump either.
Jenny!
Yeah. Special Forrest Gump, when Forrest Gump is already special. Yeah.
But when you speak now, you sound like Jason Statham, and he's a very successful actor.
And we are. Yeah.
So, I mean, why couldn't this work for you?
I suppose it could do, yeah. It could do. I'm open to all offers, open to all, you know, we'll see where my life takes me. And that's the beauty of my life, I think. It hasn't gone... certainly not the way I expected when I started out, you know. But
it's your voice now that is making you the money that you're making now.
It certainly is.
So
yeah.
The idea of getting rid of this wonderful accent doesn't seem to make sense now.
No, right. Well, I'll leave it as it is then, yeah, I can do that, yeah.
With the work you're doing in AEW now, talk me through a day of Collision. How much prep goes into that day and preparing for the matches that you're going to see? For me, quite a lot. The week prior, I'm usually on social media a fair bit looking for little, you know, hot button topics, things like that, things that are relevant. And then day of, I'll get in there early, and as soon as we've got the list of what the matches are, I'll put them all together. There's a sort of a very stringent routine that I go through every time to know, you know, the stories that I'm telling, the little bullet points as well, and then just little funny things, as I said, that I can sort of bring into the conversation, you know. So that will usually take me most of the day. As of late, I've been getting in the ring as well and rolling around. So between all of that, it's a hectic rush till 8 o'clock when we shoot. Wait a second. Dun, dun, dun! Getting in the ring? Oh, what does this mean? Been doing it for 18 months now, actually. Okay. 18 months I've been getting back in the ring. There's a ring up close to us here, about half an hour away, that I've been doing as well. There's a few rings around here. Yeah. Yeah, Santino Brothers or Rikishi's? Neither. One? Okay. Neither, yeah. Okay, a secret ring. Dun, dun, dun. I think I know the ring. I know the ring you're talking about now. Up near Northridge, I think. Yeah, I know the ring you're talking about. Your shirt says you're bump free since 2011. Indeed. So this is a lie, unfortunately. Oh. Are you working towards a return match?
I was open to the suggestion, open to the idea. When I originally signed with AEW, I took a flight cross country with Tony, and he said, I've got to swear you to secrecy. I'm going to tell you something you can't tell another soul. We're doing Wembley Stadium. And I was like, oh my God. And then just the idea occurred to me. Could you? Should you? Because Wembley Stadium, 1992, that was an epiphany for me. That was a moment. I went there with my friend, and I was sat about 50 rows back, and I just remember having this strange sensation, and I talk about it during my Magic show, how I just had this weird feeling, this belief that somehow I knew I was going to be a professional wrestler. Just, I think maybe you've had a similar idea yourself, but it stuck with me, certainly. So to go back to that venue and wrestle would just be off the charts. But, the only thing that really made sense was Bryan, and he broke his arm, because he's got osteoporosis.
Had he not broken his arm?
Could have happened.
Would it have happened?
I don't know. So much of it is out of my control, really. It's whether he wants to wrestle me. I always thought it's kind of funny. Someone asked him about that time if he'd ever wrestle me again. And he said, if I ever wrestled Nigel, I'd break his neck.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, he breaks his arm, which I thought was a bit of karma, don't you think?
That's interesting.
I've always thought as well, sometimes you get like couples and the girl is always jealous and blaming the guy for cheating. You're cheating on me. You're thinking of cheating on me. And it always turns out she was thinking of it. So I think maybe when Bryan said, if I wrestle him, I'll break his neck, he probably remembers those lariats and thinks, doesn't want that.
Yeah.
You go back and watch that match at Liverpool, right? We had that incredible match. And there was a time after he ran my head into the ring post. I rolled back in, blood pouring, looked him in the face, and I first and perhaps the only time I've ever seen true fear in his eyes. So, I think he was having a flashback, PTSD from that. So I make jokes about, I don't think he's ever going to wrestle me, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, AEW's going back to Wembley.
Yes, we are there soon, aren't we? Exactly, yeah. But Bryan's made his call now. He said he's going into the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, and if he wins that, he's going to try to challenge for the title at Wembley. So if he does that, his dream, my nightmare. But
but what if he doesn't, win the tournament?
Exactly. A lot of what ifs, a lot of intrigue, a lot of possibilities, yeah.
So is the only way you'd return, is it those two things? Is it Wembley and is it Bryan Danielson?
Certainly feels like that, you know what I mean? It certainly feels like that. All roads to me, I think, certainly aim towards him because there's so much talent in AEW. So many young guys who deserve those spots. I'm very inspired by Christian Cage, obviously, and Adam Copeland, as much as I'd hate to admit it. These guys can show that they haven't lost a step and they can still go, and all the knowledge that they have that they can convey and pass on to the next generation by being in the ring with them as well. I've been like, wow. And getting back in the ring, I felt like, wow, it's a strange realization when you figure out that the only thing stopping you being a wrestler was you, Now, having said that, I've certainly got no desire to step away from the announcing booth. I don't want to become a full-time wrestler. I don't really want to wrestle anymore, to be honest with you, other than beating Bryan, obviously, because there's our story, there's our history.
Yeah, but is it also ending things on your terms? Is that something
That's
you
definitely
want to do?
A possibility. I mean, you mentioned before we started filming that, you watched the documentary. It was rather an ignominious end to my career. I was very grateful to all the independent promoters that booked me on my final retirement tour, but I certainly never imagined that my last match would be in a small volunteer fire department in West Virginia,
Yeah.
But you just don't get to choose it sometimes.
If you're wanting to burn some extra calories or sweat out some toxins from a particularly big evening of food and drinks and indulging, check out the infrared sauna blanket from Bond Charge. I've been using this since last year and I love how it raises your body temperature while you're just kind of sitting there relaxing, reading a book or watching TV. A session's usually 30 to 40-ish minutes, and you can burn up to 600 calories in one session. I was looking into getting a sauna because I knew of all the health benefits associated with it. And I knew it would complement the cold plunging really well. I do it every day, like I start the day with a cold plunge, and then right into the sauna, so extreme cold, and then into the heat. Then I saw the cost of a sauna, and an infrared sauna blanket from Bond Charge is a fraction of that price. And I think it might actually be better because you just kind of roll it out and crawl into it, kind of like a sleeping bag. It heats up in just a minute, and then you just let it do its thing. And I always feel so refreshed when I'm done with the infrared sauna blanket. Head to bondcharge.com/CVV to check out the infrared sauna blanket and use my code CVV. You'll save 15% on it. They've got free lightning fast worldwide shipping, and you're covered with a 12-month warranty. So that's bondcharge.com/CVV and the code CVV to save 15%.
You had the moment in the ring at All In last year. You announced the record-breaking attendance. Does that, in a way, feel like a moment in your great career that you can go, yeah, I mean, I didn't perform, I didn't wrestle in Wembley, but I had a moment
100%, yeah, there was definitely that. And I think, you know, if I'd have really wanted to and pushed for it, perhaps I could have been included in a different match, but it wouldn't have made sense, you know what I mean? Again, it's the biggest show of the year, and everybody who worked so hard to be on that show deserves those spots. And yeah, for me to stand there in the middle of the ring and make that announcement was incredible, you know, and very nerve-wracking. And I wish I'd prepared. I didn't know it was going to happen.
What do you mean?
So walking out there, no one had told me I was going to make the announcement because they really didn't find out until the very last minute exactly what the number was. And so I think it was a match or a match and a half before, through the cans, said, right, after the next match, Nigel, you're going to get in the ring and announce this. And you have to write it down, make sure I got the number right and the wording right, et cetera, you know. And then the match ends and I'm, all right. I go to get in the ring, get it, go, it's you now. And I don't know where the cameras are. It's such a huge stadium. I don't know where the cameras are. So I'm trying to find the cameras and trying to find something to say that's profound and just, you know, get swept up in the emotion of it. But it was one of those experiences for me that was so exhilarating at the time. It was almost like an out-of-body experience, you know?
I always worry for the person who has to announce the attendance because, you know, it's 5 numbers in this case. You've got to remember these 5 numbers in this very specific order. And obviously this is, you know, some of the work you do as a magician, but what if you say it wrong? Do they change the graphic on the screen immediately? Oh, crap, he said.
Yeah, right. Well, they get one of the words wrong, right? You know, or, yeah, you mislead them or whatever else. Exactly.
The amount of pressure, though, to 81,035 fans.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah, you still remember.
What if you said 38?
Right, yeah.
Are they going, oh, you change it?
A lot of people would say that. But, you know, it's funny. I've been reading a book by Bertrand Russell called The Conquest of Happiness, and it was written back in the 1930s. You familiar with Bertrand Russell? He's a very, very famous philosopher, mathematician in England. And he wrote this book about happiness. And even in 1930, there's a lot of similarities to the world today. And he talked about how he was a very famous public speaker. And when he started doing it, he was nervous. He said a lot of times he wished that he broke a leg before he actually did the speech. But then he got to a stage where he just realized, if you can just let it go and you just think, whether it's good or whether it's bad, I'll just do my best. As soon as he did that and he let it go, he got better. And I've certainly found that when it comes to commentary as well.
When did you feel like you started to get comfortable at commentary?
I think once I started working in WWE, probably. No. Certainly in Ring of Honor, once I'd realized where my inspiration was coming from, which is obviously largely Joe Rogan, you know, someone who has the experience of being in what you're watching and can lend that credibility of why things are happening the way they are. That was sort of like a moment for me, penny dropping, certainly. But then when I got hired by WWE, purely the fact that they hired me gave me a ton of confidence because I'm like, oh, well, clearly they see something in me.
Yeah, must be doing something right.
Yeah, right, exactly, which is kind of ironic given that, you know, some of the people in Ring of Honor didn't see that, but be that as it may, that was when it really started to hit, and I just sort of, really found my voice, so to speak. It's not so much to be nervous about. With wrestling, you've got to be nervous about, what if something goes wrong? What if I hurt myself? What if they hurt themselves? 100 different things. And I was thinking on the way over here today, actually, with commentary, the worst you can do is not say what you were planning on saying, and no one knows that anyway. And in the grand scheme of things anyway, Chris, it's just professional wrestling. We're not serving, and we're not sort of solving third world hunger. It's a blessing,
Yeah.
Regal says it all the time. Everything you've got in this job is an absolute blessing, and I feel that. I absolutely feel that to my core.
When you got hired by WWE to do commentary, did you realize just how little you actually knew about doing commentary?
Yeah, well, I've always said, actually, if this is what I know about doing commentary, this is what I learned in WWE about it, and that all goes down to Michael Cole and filtered down through Tom Phillips, who was, just such, both of them so incredible in, taking their time and explaining WWE's view of commentary and how to do it, and setting me up for success rather than failure. And, Michael Cole was, when he started there, people weren't quite so kind and understanding to him. So
it's taken about 25 years for fans to come around on him.
Right, but not even the fans, even the people behind the scenes. It was a very different atmosphere backstage when he started. And sometimes people pay that forward. You know what I mean? I had to endure this. I had to pay my dues. He could have been very mean and, say, you've got to, be good or else you're going to be. But he didn't want that. He wanted it to be a success. That's why, in my opinion, he's such a valuable asset to that company.
What is WWE's view on commentary?
Well, we haven't got enough time to talk about that. And I would imagine, I dare say, it's changed now, given that the higher ups is a different structure than it was when I was there. Like I said, if all the things that I've learned, the beauty of it now is that I can take the things that I think really work, and the few little things that I felt like, not for me, don't have to do them anymore. You know what I mean? So we've got much more freedom in AEW to just take the government off and see what happens.
Yeah, I think the thing that people don't realize is when commentary is great, you really don't notice it because it's just kind of guiding you along. It's kind of telling a story. And that's what you're so good at. It's not about calling this move, then this move, then this move. It's about explaining why is this thing happening and what does that mean for perhaps later on in the match or later on in the story. How long did it take you to get to that point?
That came relatively early to me because having been a wrestler, you're in that mindset anyway. When you look at a match, the difficulty for me, what I had to learn, was that ability to say it at the right times as well. The structure of a match is such that you can't say the things at the end of the match that you were going to say at the beginning of the match, et cetera, et cetera. There's so much complexity of it that, again, I couldn't even really cover it here, but people have no idea. And I didn't. I had no idea before I did commentary how complicated it is, how much nuance there is to it, You
said something really interesting in the documentary. I actually wrote it down because I thought it was so interesting. You said acting happens between the lines and wrestling happens between the moves.
Indeed.
It's so profound.
Right.
And when you really think about it, it's so true. And basically what you're saying is it's not about the moves. It's about the story that's being told.
Yeah, it's definitely, you have to have the moves, certainly, and you need to establish a move set. And if you do the same move set as someone else, then it's going to be very difficult to get over. But it is that undercurrent, that charisma, whatever it is. But you do, in wrestling, you remember moments. And I think those moments often happen between moves. I think we can all think of moments in matches that we watched growing up that just had those moments.
Yeah, it's about a feeling, right? It's about the feeling that you feel. Like I always go back to Dustin Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes at Double or Nothing, and I was there live watching it, and people were crying.
Wow!
And it wasn't about because this move, then this move, then this move. It was about the feeling and the emotion that it made you feel.
Yeah,
and it's special.
Yeah, I can see it's bringing tears to your eyes now, right? And I'm sure they felt it as well. And that's when pro wrestling is at its best. you know. And I've always found that funny. I talk about it in the Magic Show as well. How all of us that get pro wrestling, we're part of this proud, dirty secret. Like if you see someone in the world with a pro wrestling T-shirt, you go, they're one of us.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I don't know why, because you can watch a movie, a terrible movie, and you don't leave it and go, I'm not watching movies anymore. They're awesome. They're awful. You know. But there are people that will watch a bad pro wrestling match and go, pro wrestling's fake. But why is that? It's a strange thing.
We could talk all day about that.
And the same thing applies to other scripted TV, right? You can have a TV show that's scripted with storylines about homophobia or racism or drug addiction. You can have characters which are abhorrent that you detest. But you can't really have that necessarily, not to that extent in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Because there's that fine line. And for some reason, we think that these people that you see on TV are truly what you're seeing. And sometimes it's close.
It's the line is very blurred. It's the reason I call you Nigel, right? But is Nigel McGuinness sitting in front of me? You know, that
certainly is.
The line is blurred, right? It's a strange thing.
Right. Yeah. You become what's that word? A caricature of yourself almost. I mean, Ric Flair is a classic example. He says that he is Ric Flair.
Yeah.
You know, for better or for worse.
But I interviewed Ric Flair a handful of months ago, and on that same day I interviewed Hulk Hogan, and he introduced himself to everybody on set as Terry. Hey, I'm Terry. Great to meet you.
Yeah.
So it's like, for some people, it's like...
Isn't it strange?
It is so strange. Yeah. Why is that?
I honestly don't know, to be perfectly clear. I mean, my mum still calls me Nigel.
What?
Yeah. So very few
it's not
people
the game
in the world.
She gave you. The name she gave you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. And sometimes when people call me by my real name, it feels a little odd. It feels as if they're sort of going, I know who you really are. So I'll call you by your real name. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all right. Yeah, call me Nigel. It's good. Yeah.
So I think a lot of men struggle with not being able to sleep well at night and not being able to lose weight. And when I turned 40 recently, I realized it was going to take more than great workout routines and eating healthy to really feel my best. I needed to take my health into my own hands. And that's what I did with Merrick Health. Merrick Health is the premier health optimization platform empowering you to maximize your longevity and performance with the confidence that comes from having experts in your back pocket. Merrick Health offers cutting-edge diagnostic labs, concierge health coaching, and expert clinical oversight. They support clients like me in achieving their health and fitness goals. Think of this as kind of like looking under the hood of what's going on in your body and giving you a baseline of where your numbers are at, and then seeing what you can do to either raise those numbers or lower those numbers. I can now say that at 41 years old, I am the healthiest I've been in my entire life, and I have the numbers to back that up. Everyone who orders the optimization package receives extensive lab work, which is 84 carefully selected biomarkers, far more than any doctor would ever run for you. A custom lab report with actionable recommendations validated by their clinical research team and physicians, and a thorough analysis of your lab report and video call with Merrick Health. So to get the same panel and the same medical oversight that I got and I currently get, go to merrickhealth.com/CVV and use that code CVV to get 10% off. And I look forward to meeting the best and healthiest version of you.
When you talk about you're rolling in the ring, you're taking bumps, I think there's a lot of fans that didn't even think it would be possible for you to return to the ring. Let's clear this up. When were you able to get medically cleared to wrestle again? It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, ostensibly, once I cleared Hep B, then I was cleared to wrestle.
People don't even understand that you can clear the virus.
So hepatitis is very confusing because there are 4, maybe even 5 different variants of hepatitis. And they think because they're all called hepatitis, they're all similar, but they're not. They're only called hepatitis because they affect your liver, your hepatic function. So you've got Hep A, which you get from eating bad food, which makes you very sick very quickly, and then you get rid of it pretty much. You've got Hep B, which is what I had, which is generally you get rid of it yourself within a few months. 10% of people don't get rid of it, which is what happened to me. And then Hep C, which generally speaking was considered lifelong, But now I believe there's medication, you can get rid of it as well. And then there's Hep D as well, which I'm not too familiar with. But Hep B, which I had, I didn't clear it. So because of that, I had to take some medication. And it took about a year for me to finally clear the virus. And then once you get rid of the virus, you have the antibodies to the virus. So the majority of people, the 90% of people who get Hep B, never know they have it. Because you only really have symptoms for it, for a short period of time, and then you can get rid of it, and then you do a blood test and you will find the antibodies to it. And once we've got rid of it, you can't pass it on anymore because there's no more virus. So that's what happened to me.
Did you know that you had it?
Yes. So it popped up in a blood test.
But did you know before the blood test?
No. No, I had no idea. I was as shocked as anyone.
Do you know how you contracted it?
No. No, I've got my ideas, but I'm certainly not going to open myself up to litigation.
Sure.
But, I can tell you, I certainly didn't do it. I wasn't, living a reckless lifestyle in any way, shape or form. But the truth of the matter is, and this was part of my objection, for want of a better phrase, to the use of blood in wrestling, is that it's contagious enough that you can never know how you get it. And so if there's loads of bloods around, it's still difficult for me to watch, difficult for me to be around, certainly. But after all this time, and again, I was one of the few people that went public with it, with my documentary. It doesn't seem like there's been a lot of other people who've had any issues with it, HIV is obviously another concern for the same sort of reason. But Hep B itself, specifically, without talking for hours about hepatitis B, is particularly contagious at that sort of stage,
You advocated for a long time against blading in wrestling, intentionally bleeding in wrestling. Now you're working for a company where that happens frequently. Does it make you maybe uncomfortable?
It's difficult. Yeah, it's definitely difficult. And it is sometimes a crisis of conscience for me. Oftentimes I don't know if it's going to happen. And sometimes it happens by accident, So it's certainly something I've thought of, and I feel very comfortable in the sense that I don't feel I'd ever be forced to do commentary on a match that I didn't feel comfortable doing so. It's something that I think that, maybe I will address moving forward. I'm not sure. Again, it's hard for me to say because pre-getting it myself, I would have said, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And in the time since, nobody else has tested positive. So it's hard for me to say, just because of me, one example,
Are you saying it's a health thing? You don't think people should be cutting themselves in the ring because who knows what it could lead to?
Yeah, there's definitely part of that. I mean, part of it, I think, always as well. I remember in TNA, there was one time, only one match actually. I didn't really want to. And, I don't like getting into the weeds of all that sort of stuff anyway. But for me, it always felt like the true art form is being able to do it without people knowing, I mean, look, the cat's out the bag. But there are a lot of similarities between, as we'll get to, magic and wrestling. One of them is that you don't want to throw that curtain back because once you do, people lose that magic.
Yeah.
And so to that extent, I don't think that unless it's the exception rather than the rule,
Yeah. I felt watching your documentary, and I'm sure you're a very different person now, 10 plus years later from when you filmed that. But there was like this through line of like, not everybody gets a shot. Like just because you work hard doesn't mean that you deserve a shot. You had your shot. It didn't work out. And now you're in a completely different like part of your life and you're doing incredible work on commentary. How do you feel about where you're at now and where your career's at now?
Very happy, very blessed. Certainly, as I said earlier, life very rarely works out the way you expect. And I'm a determinist. Do you know what determinism is, Chris?
You're just, I think it's the idea of like you have a goal and you're...
No, the idea of determinism is that free will is an illusion. And absolutely everything that happens in life is predetermined. From the color of the socks that you put on in the morning to who you'll marry, everything is predetermined.
Are we living in some sort of a...
Not alternate universe, no. But Einstein felt this was the case. There's been a number of very
Is
intelligent
this a simulation?
No, I don't think so either. I mean, we can get into that with Jimmy Jacobs if you have him on here, certainly. But I believe, it seems to me that when you look back on your life, oftentimes it feels as though you had free choice and you had a free will, but you didn't, and you're just reading the book. And maybe that's just me trying to find solace in the fact that it didn't work out exactly the way that I'd hoped. But either way, I truly do believe that, and it gives you pause, and it gives you the chance to sort of say, every positive thing that happens to me is a blessing. You know,
it was right there for you. Like if we go back to 2009, you were setting the world on fire, and you had the offer from WWE, and then it got rescinded. You remember that day?
Again, you're giving away all my magic show, because this is all half of what I talk in. I was on the beach in Florida, actually, when I got the phone call from the doctor. So Bryan and I were both signed at the same time. We both had a contract, and it wasn't a developmental contract. It was an on-the-road contract. And we both went to the physical at the same time, and I passed, and he had a few little niggling things that he managed to resolve. And the doctor said to me, in passing afterwards, have you ever had any injuries? And I've been wrestling for 10 years, so who hadn't, you know? And I'd had an old arm injury, which previously a orthopedic surgeon who was highly recommended had looked at it and said it's partially torn, it'll scar in place, and it's no more likely to get re-injured than if it had never been hurt in the first place. Even wrote me a letter saying that. So I said, we got this. And so he said, well, send me the MRI, and I just want to take a look at it. So I sent him the MRI. He said, you need surgery. I said, my guy doesn't need surgery. Told me I didn't need surgery. And so long and the short of it is he said, I can't, recommend that we hire you. And so what was I going to do? What was I going to do at that point?
Did you have options?
Well, I mean, my options were to get surgery. So first of all, I didn't have a lot of money. Second of all, I didn't believe I really needed surgery. I'd already wrestled on this for a year and a half since having the original injury, and was perfectly okay. And third of all, just because I've had the surgery doesn't mean they're then going to hire me, because I couldn't get that kind of assurance. They may not ever hire me again. So it was just, and there was an offer on the table from TNA. I remember my last match in New York with Bryan, and I remember getting a phone call from someone at TNA saying, if it doesn't work out with WWE, give us a shout. So sure enough, after I got that phone call, I gave them a call, and I was totally honest. I said, this is what they've said. This is what I believe. And so they said, okay, we'll sign you up. I mean, it was for pennies on the dollar compared to what I would have made, but I really, truly believed in myself, my ability. I was going to go to TNA, prove them wrong, have some great matches, and before the hepatitis, that was largely what happened, Was that just a tiny window of opportunity with WWE? Like, why not after a little bit of time with TNA? Why wouldn't WWE give you another look? Well, I think, the hepatitis thing was a big factor, certainly, and then, I don't know. All I know is I remember reaching out after that to friends who worked in WWE, and I think it was Johnny was, the first conduit to getting anybody in then, and it just said, no, there was no interest.
Do you feel like your career, your in-ring career then became a big what if?
100%, yeah, I struggled with that.
You still feel that?
No, not at all. Again, because I'm a determinist, because I believe that there was no choice, that things couldn't have worked out any other way. It was always going to work out that way, And again, maybe I'm just, convincing myself for that reason so I don't have to struggle with it. But without that, without what happened, I wouldn't have had the documentary, And that documentary has talked to so many people, because you watch documentaries about famous people, not that I'm a famous person, but usually it's because this is the guy who made it. You don't usually hear the documentary about the people who didn't make it. And so that story, I think, speaks to far more people in the world. And, I've got some great friends now that I've made through that. Chris Bricker, who's incredible comedian in the UK. We met through him watching the documentary, and we're great friends from it now. And there are so many other people there. I remember, God, it brings tears to my eyes, how there was a guy in England, and he used to watch wrestling with his mum, and they liked Ring of Honor because they didn't like WWE at the time for whatever reason, and I was their favorite wrestler. And his mum had a stroke and struggled to talk and to communicate, but he said that that was one of the few things that they could connect with after that, and to have that to have that ability to touch people's lives is a true blessing. So there was that. And then if I had gone back to wrestling, then I wouldn't have had a chance to become the commentator that I am. Arguably, well, not arguably, certainly a safer job, and arguably one that I'm much better at.
And one you can do for
the rest of your life.
Right,
exactly. So none of that would have happened,
But when you say, here's a documentary about someone who didn't make it, what do you mean? You wrestled Ring of Honor, wrestled in TNA, obviously after the documentary, hired by WWE to do commentary. All three of those are dream jobs for most people. So then it comes down to, then what's the definition of making it?
Exactly, and that's something that I think all of us who have those sort of aspirations in entertainment, and Chris, I'm sure you can talk about the same thing for yourself, right? At what level do you have to be? Do you have to be a Ryan Seacrest before you're going, okay, now I've made it?
Right, and then there's always somebody that's, better looking and more talented and makes more money, always.
Yeah, and it's always, again, not to bring it back to the clam digger, but for me and Bryan to have that... for me and Bryan to have those parallel stories.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever met him. It was in a locker room in Ohio. Second match I ever did for Ring of Honor, I think. And he was just sitting there reading a book, and I had this really weird, unerring sensation that he was going to play a big factor in my life. Just knew it, even before we'd ever had our first match, And so then for our careers to go in such different directions and to see the success that he's had, that's why it's almost impossible not to compare yourself to other people as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I feel truly blessed that the opportunities that present themselves because I didn't get to WWE. Because listen, let's say in an alternate universe, if it wasn't a deterministic universe, that instead of that, someone pulled for me and they said, forget about the arm, we'll hire you anyway. Let's say I go there. Let's say I get kicked in the head by someone. Let's say I have a concussion. I never able to shake it. And that's the end of my career.
I've also sat across from many people who did get hired by WWE and just maybe not used in a great way. A year or two later, they're right back where they started.
Right.
Except they can say former WWE superstar.
Where do they go from there?
Right.
Exactly. So again, I think it speaks to what William Regal talks about, how everything you get is an absolute blessing. So I've really come to terms with it. I'm totally at peace with it.
When did you become a determinist?
I think that probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I would think, certainly. It's a bit of a contentious subject. It's really a moot point because either it is or it isn't. If the world is completely deterministic, then every conversation that you ever has is already predetermined.
That's right.
It's not here.
I'm not even choosing the words I'm about to say.
Exactly right. Yeah. So it's a bit of a fun conversation for a road trip. But yeah, I would say about 5 years ago, I just can't see how it works otherwise. Like, at what level of evolution do people or things have free will? Do dogs have free will, for example? Can a dog, and what is free will? Right? To me, free will is the idea. Let's say we've got 2 drinks here in front of us.
Yes,
right?
we do.
A little bit of shilling for you.
Delicious F3 energy, yes, thank you.
And I ask you to point to one of those.
Okay.
Now, you're going to point to one of them. And this comes back to magic and mentalism as well.
Yeah,
right? Now, you may not know which one you're going to point to. You might point to that one because it's closer to you.
Yep.
You might point to that one because it's blue instead of red. You might point to 100 different reasons.
Yeah.
And maybe you're not even aware of the reasons why you might point to one of them or the other, right? But you are going to point to one of them.
Yes.
Free will exists if you could go back in time and with the exact same reasoning choose a different one instead. Why would you? You wouldn't. You couldn't.
This is why Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. And I bring it up far too often in these episodes.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of like Marty goes back to 1955 and he's watching his parents meet. And if they don't meet, we see the photo and he's disappearing. And like, he seems to be able to completely change the space-time continuum by going, if this person's not here at this exact point in time, then this thing doesn't happen, then all of these different things, which is very similar subject, but at the same time also a very different subject. I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by the idea of like, if I speed up to make it through this yellow light instead of braking and sitting at this red light, what happens in my life? If I went through, was I going to get in a car accident or any number of things?
You're presupposing free will with that statement. What if? There is no if, because you were going to do what you were going to do. Yeah. Spooky, eh? We're getting in the weeds.
We are getting in the weeds. We'll talk a little more wrestling before we get into all of that stuff.
Yeah. We could talk about some magic as well if you want. Actually, full disclosure, I should probably say before we started, I did ask you to choose a random wrestler, right? I asked you to choose a random wrestler and write it down. I didn't see it, correct?
That's correct.
Turn my back.
You turned
your
back.
Put away someone else like that,
The
right?
cameras were turned off. Yes, I did that.
It wasn't DDP, was it?
It was not DDP.
Okay. All right.
Was it supposed to be DDP?
No, carry on.
Okay. I see what you did there. Okay. Before we get into more magic, the matches you had with Kurt Angle and TNA, that was magic. The two guys in their absolute prime. And people don't talk about how good Kurt Angle was in TNA.
No.
So good.
He's incredible.
So what do you feel like you learned from working with Kurt in the series of matches you had in TNA?
Wow. So much. I learned self-confidence, I think, as well. I've always found the best matches I had were where I could go to someone and go, I got this idea and I got this idea, and they'd take it and they'd put it in the right place. Bryan's a perfect example of that as well. And so I learnt timing, and also it was one of the few times in my career we had a very small European tour. And so I was working with him a lot of nights there, and we ostensibly, worked each other every night. And so the ability to, I don't say have the same match, but the ability to tell the same story and then tweak it just a little bit. And this is what changed so dramatically when we got away from the house show way of making money in the business. It used to be, and maybe it still is in WWE, I'm not sure, but it used to be that you'd work the same guy night after night after night, and you'd just tweak it a little bit. This is developing that ability to sort of ad-lib on the fly. Whereas now, with the advent of YouTube and whatever else, and your match is out there immediately, you can't do that. People watch a match, you think of the great British wrestlers of the past, Johnny Saint, for example, who, God bless his soul, did his stuff week after week after week. Didn't need to change it because it got over, because people weren't watching it back going, he did this last week. This is the last week. He did this the same time. He didn't need to change it because it worked. But now the business has just changed dramatically. The world has changed dramatically. Entertainment has changed dramatically.
But if I go see a band in Los Angeles tonight, and the set list will immediately be up as soon as the concert's over, and then that same band plays in San Diego tomorrow, and they play the same set list, are you saying people would get upset about that?
Why is that?
Yeah.
I've often wondered that about magic.
What if that's music? The show,
Yeah. It is strange. I honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, I suppose.
But if I see David Copperfield in Las Vegas tonight, and then I see him again tomorrow, early show and late show, it's the same show.
Yeah.
Why would I be upset about that?
No, but perhaps you wouldn't, as long as you don't see through the curtain. And perhaps that's the complexity of pro wrestling that doesn't exist with any other form of entertainment.
Yeah.
Is because seeing the same match 2 nights in a row just tells your brain,
I know what's coming next.
Of course.
Yeah.
And that's
I get it. It's the same reason why when they do part 2 of a movie, we want to see a different story being told. Maybe some, callbacks to the first show.
Yeah,
first
but it
movie.
is strange. If you think of your favorite movie, you love watching your movie again, even though you know what's going to happen.
Yes.
But then perhaps, are there great wrestling matches that you can watch back again, even though you know exactly what's going to happen? There are. There absolutely are. And it still touches you that same way. But other matches, not so much. I know. Complicated.
Put your bias aside for 1 minute. Why is Bryan Danielson one of the best wrestlers in the world?
I would say this because he's paid to have an award named after him.
Whoa.
No. Yeah, it's hard for me to answer that honestly. He's worked hard.
Okay. He's been doing it a long time.
He's been doing it a long time. Even a blind squirrel gets a nut from time to time. And he's just got the right attitude, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, he's got that working class hero sort of attitude of just challenging himself constantly, getting better, committing himself to something. And he's got some natural innate ability as well. And I wonder if he's sort of inspired by the fact that he looks a bit like a Neanderthal. You know what I mean? He's not the sort of, you put him up in a wall, you know, in a lineup, and you go, who would you pick to be a great professional? You're not choosing him, are you? You know what I mean? Like, and so maybe that sort of has inspired him to really, you know, become as good as he possibly can. Yeah.
Against all odds.
Against all odds, right? And sometimes against all odds is what you need to be a success, right? Sometimes if people are pulling for you from day one, and I don't want to say it's all handed to you, but, you know, if a lot of people are pushing you in the right direction, it doesn't feel like as much of a success as if you've really been told you're never going to make it and you're not big enough, you're not good enough. You know, I mean, there was the longest time, you know, in the mid-2000s where none of us ever dreamt we could have got to that stage, you know?
Yeah.
Well, apart from me, because I always felt like I was going to make it for some strange reason, and then I was the one who didn't. Such is life.
You've had some wild lines on commentary. Bryan Danielson used to be vegan, but he couldn't give up eating brie.
I wish I could take credit for that one, Christopher, but unfortunately, no.
Who gets the credit?
The beauty of social media. I think someone must have posted it on Twitter about a year or so ago, something like that. And I thought, that sounds a fun line. I wasn't sure whether I could use it because, you know, I've had a lot of lines that I always run everything by Bobby Cruz before the show because he's a good sort of, you know, barometer of whether this is politically correct enough or not. And that one got through the cruisometer. So
you were talking about cheese, right?
Talking about cheese, yeah. Exactly. You know,
yeah.
There were some upset people in France, but can't please everyone.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
Yeah, I was glad to get it out, and it's interesting. Sometimes I think, oh, this is I'll save this one for the perfect time, and there is no perfect time. You know, that's one thing I've definitely learned about commentaries. If you've got something, say it. Get it out. Just keep doing this. Keep doing this. It's not like stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy, you get your jokes and you fine-tune them. And
set up, punchline,
You've got an hour of stuff and it's solid, you know. Every week, new joke. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. You know, I've you know, whiffed on a couple of them recently, and that's the beauty. What I love about AEW is that I'm not worried about people saying to me, "You shouldn't have said that," or you know, this, you know, that's inappropriate. Or I mean, I hear about it after the fact. Certainly, someone was upset that I made a joke. What was it I said about Bryan? He broke his arm, and everyone was saying how valiant he is for, you know, continuing to wrestle with a broken arm when he can't use one of his arms. And I said, we've been married for 7 years. He's got plenty of experience using both hands already, you know. And someone said, that's really offensive to someone who's been married for a long time. And I'm like,
what?
At what point do you draw the line, right?
You also made some sort of comment. You're like, well, he only broke one of the bones in his arm. I mean...
208 bones in the human body.
206 bones in the human body. There's only one.
Oh, I love it.
He's got another bone in his arm.
It's such easy material. And I love it.
Do you go into commentary? You know, you've got your notes, right? And you got your notes there. And do you go in with like, I'm going to definitely say this line in this match?
I have an idea of it, yeah, certainly. But 9 times out of 10, it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit there. Because maybe there's a story. The story is the most important thing. You know, you've got to get over the story of why the match is happening. Why should you care about this? Me making a joke about French cheese, you know, it's funny, gets people watching. You need it from time to time, but overall, you've got to say, why do I care about this match?
We've all heard the stories about some of the things you might be hearing in your ear in commentary when you're working in WWE. What are you hearing in your ear when you're commentating in AEW?
Not so much. Yeah, there's not so much production. Tony will sometimes feed me a couple of lines here and there if he thinks it fits, but not half as much as it was in WWE. But having to be said that, when I worked in WWE, it was NXT or NXT UK. It wasn't as heavily produced as their main brand products. So I never really had to sort of experience that level of things there, but in AEW, it's been fantastic. Yeah,
you're hearing a lot of like 2 minutes to commercial break or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Don't forget to plug this sponsor,
right? And Tony Schiavone, bless his soul, does the majority of that, or Excalibur. When he's on the show, they handle what's called traffic, just as Michael Cole would as well, and that's an absolute blessing to have someone to do that.
Yeah, you're not so much doing color commentaries; you're doing like color analysts. Like it's a beautiful merger of the two, where you're explaining, like you said, with Joe Rogan, what he does in UFC. You're bringing that to wrestling.
Yeah, I think so. I think it fits perfectly. Certainly a 2-man booth, or sometimes the 3-man booth as well. If you want, diametrically opposed analysts or color guys, then that works as well. But you have to have that difference. And that was one of the things that most people don't even realize, the difference between a play-by-play guy and a color guy. And, they need to be different voices. The color guy handles the flow, the traffic, calls the move if and when, and the color guy throws a little bit in here and there and there. Yeah.
Why were you Desmond Wolfe in TNA? Why couldn't you continue to be Nigel McGuinness?
I'm not sure. Tony Khan was really, he always says, why'd they change your name? You were so over, you were a brand, and they got rid of that. And obviously they did it because they wanted to own the IP. And that obviously filters down from WWE. That was their mentality as well. But the name, you'd have to ask Vince Russo. I think it came from him. There was a movie with Nail and I. It's a classic. It's a classic British movie. It's set, I think it was filmed in the 80s, early 90s. It's set the last weeks of the 60s, 1969, and these two sort of dreadful actors in London trying to make it. They've got no money. They're using like deep heat to keep warm because they haven't got any heating. And one of them, Richard E. Grant, I believe, says, when I make it, I'm going to change my name. I'm going to be Desmond Wolfe. And I don't know if that's where it came from, but it's a fantastic movie, and I'll take it if it is.
All right, what kind of magic do you have for us? Let's dive into it.
Oh, we're going straight into the magic?
I think so, right?
Oof, wow. Okay, well, we can start off with some stuff.
And by the way, this isn't just stuff you do for fun, right? People can see your show.
Yes, so I have a magic show, ostensibly called Nigel McGuinness's Magical Night. It was inspired by the passing of Jay Briscoe. People had always said to me, it's been a hobby of mine for the longest time, magic, just cards and stuff like that. It started in Japan. And
how long ago? How long have you been doing this?
2006, I would say. I first got a deck of cards and started doing that. But it was all small, close-up sort of stuff. And so to do a stage show is just completely different. I didn't want to make the effort to do it, and it was a hassle, and I didn't feel like I could do it either. And then when Jay passed and I'd got let go from WWE, and you just realise you're not guaranteed tomorrow, let's do this, And I took 3 weeks and I wrote down my life story ostensibly and tried to use magic to emphasize parts of that. So I'll talk about not getting hired by WWE because I was honest about an old arm injury. So that makes me very good at detecting lies now. So I get people on stage and I'll get them to lie and figure out who's lying, who's telling the truth, you know. So I've done it about 6 or 7 times now, this show. I've done it in London, I've done it in Chicago, Philadelphia, and I've made changes to it. Now it's less about my life story and more about just doing some fun magic things and relating them to wrestling. So it's fantastic. Yeah, it's wonderful. It's got great reviews, and we're looking for a place in Dallas to do it by the time this airs. Hopefully, we'll go somewhere. If you follow me on social media, @McGuinness Nigel, that's where we'll have all the information. Maybe.
Didn't you just do it in Vegas too?
Yeah, we did one in Vegas as well. So
what about here? Have you done one in LA?
Yeah, we did a couple actually in LA. Yeah, the Illusion Magic Lounge, which is a fantastic magic venue down in Santa Monica. You should go and check that out as well. We did that down there a couple of times. You know, it's just, for me, I have trouble getting enough people into it because, you know, when you hear magic, you go, oh, here's a rabbit. Ta-da!
Did you bring any rabbits?
So people don't really understand what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not even a traditional magic show either.
That's why I feel like Vegas would have been a great spot. People seem to, I don't know, people are always looking to be entertained in Vegas. People seem to get magic there, whether it's Chris Angel or David Copperfield
But it is a very wrestling-centric show as well, in the sense of I talk about wrestling and I relate the two things together. So, for example, I've got a little monkey dressed like Bryan Danielson that I bring on stage all the time. And so when I bring him on stage, if you're not a wrestling fan, you just go, who's this, etc., etc. So all the jokes that I make, they wouldn't get the Brie joke, for example, obviously. You know,
so what if you did it what if you did it around every big pay-per-view that AEW
That's the idea. I've been trying to piggyback off of the AEW
why not
stuff.
Long Island?
Yeah. Well, because you've got to find a venue in Long Island. You've got to make sure it's the right time. You know, so it's the day before. Can you find a venue? And is it financially viable? And can you get the word out to enough people? And if it's on a Friday night, are people not already got plans? And the logistics of it are boring and
These are all the reasons why I didn't have a live show. Why'd you ask me DDP earlier? Did you think it was DDP?
I just, for some reason,
he's one of my very good friends.
Yeah,
I love DDP.
He's a wonderful person, certainly, but he's not on one of these.
Or were you trying to put it in my head?
Was I? I don't know. But it was
some determinist.
It was an American wrestler, right?
Yes.
Okay.
As two non-Americans sit here right now.
Yeah. But I think maybe I got the era wrong because it wasn't an Attitude Era. I think it was before the Attitude Era. Is that right?
That's correct.
Wasn't Mr. Perfect.
It was not Mr. Perfect.
All right, great.
What are you doing?
I'll run out eventually.
Yeah.
So this is perhaps the most highly sought after deck of cards in the pro wrestling world.
What is this? It's Double or Nothing?
Double or Nothing AEW cards. And there's all these different beauty of it. They got wrestlers.
I don't know if my person's going to be in there.
No?
I don't know.
Okay, let's try this. Normally, I would use my favorite wrestlers for this. Could you guess who my favorite wrestlers are? I know you can guess who my favorite wrestler isn't.
Are these just current AEW people or all time?
Yeah, this is current AEW people. No, this is current AEW people. This is current AEW people, and this was Double or Nothing 2023. So so I'll save you the effort.
Your favorite's British Bulldog, right?
Not necessarily. I'm a big fan of Davey Boy, but I would normally use in this deck my two favorite AEW wrestlers, Christian Cage, of course, and Lee Moriarty.
Christian sat right here.
Yes, I watched it.
Oh, thank you.
The patriarch.
Yeah.
The paterfamilias.
I'm just glad my dad's still around.
Right. So anyway, choose two random cards, two random
And you're going to see which ones I choose?
Yeah, that's not important, but just choose.
Let's choose some. I like this. That's a good one.
Going with Jack?
Yeah, I got, should I show the camera here?
That's fine, yeah.
I got Jack Perry, Jungle Boy. And then, okay, we're going to also take Sammy Guevara.
All right.
Okay, so these are the two
young stars. So what's your memory like?
I think pretty good.
Pretty good?
I remember do I need to remember the actual
No,
cards?
just remember the people.
Oh, I remember the people, sure.
So if I put those cards down like that now, which one's on top? Who's on top?
That was Sammy on top.
Sammy on top, are you sure? It is Sammy.
Okay.
Yay.
Yes, all right.
So if you take Sammy and you hold him thumb up, that card in your hand is what?
That's Sammy Guevara.
Are you sure? If I show you this one is...
That's Jack, okay.
Jack. This one now has to be Sammy, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Unless I've changed it, it's a completely different person.
Yeah.
So take a look, make sure.
Sammy Guevara.
So you've still got Sammy, right?
Yep, I got Sammy.
I've got Jack.
Yep.
You've got Sammy. I'll swap Jack for Sammy.
Okay, yep, that felt right.
got Sammy, you got Jack. All right, now watch this. Ready? 3, loosen up a bit. 2, loosen up. 1! Without looking now, that card, is that Sammy or Jack?
That's the same one.
Definitely the same one. I didn't switch it. You sure?
Yeah.
So I'll put that one on top. Which one's on top?
Sammy.
If I've changed the order, would you be impressed, Chris?
Yeah.
Now, I asked you about your memory, didn't I?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember who my favorite wrestlers are?
Christian Cage and Lee Moriarty. Okay. Wow. Okay. Where's Sammy? Where's Jack?
Where's Sammy? Exactly. Yeah. Drum roll.
Sure, please. You brought a pad and
Yeah. We'll get into it. I was thinking maybe we could sweat this up or something, but just
okay. Let's see.
Just tell me to stop somewhere in the middle.
Stop.
There. And I did stop what you said, right?
Yes, you did.
Take a look.
Okay. And I'm not showing you who I got here?
You got.
Okay. All right.
Put it back.
Right in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then give it a few cuts. Make sure there's no way that I can see where Nick Jackson would be.
Okay. It's not Nick Jackson.
It's not?
No.
Are you sure? It had to be Nick Jackson.
It's not Nick Jackson. Should I have showed the camera on that one?
Yeah, you should have showed the camera.
Well, it's not.
Are you sure you're not just messing with me?
No. Are you messing with me now?
No, I don't think I am. Who was it? Legitimately, who was it?
It's his brother.
So I got close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 2 Jacksons.
Right. So you were thinking of a Jackson.
Yes.
One more time.
Okay. Stop.
All right. Same again.
We will show. Close your eyes. Look the other way. This is who our person is right here. Okay. All right.
You got it? Mm-hmm. And that's now lost, right?
Better be.
Possibly know where it is. All right.
Yeah, there's Matt Jackson. That wasn't the one, though.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, let's spread these out here.
Okay. Do we got enough room?
I don't think I do.
Spread them out. And...
Do this for me. Mm-hmm. Hold that pen.
Okay. How do you want me to hold it?
Like that.
Okay.
If you can.
Like this?
Yeah. Now, this is what's going to happen. As I go through this, see how that pen is sturdy in your hand?
Yes.
Now, right?
Very.
Don't give anything away.
Okay.
Keep that pen completely and utterly You haven't seen it.
I can't see a lot of these, so.
The next card I turn over is your card. Yes or no?
This one? Yes! Lance Archer. What am I doing with this pen now?
Da-da-da-da-da.
Wow.
So there we go. There's some mentalism.
Am I still holding the pen?
No, you can let go of the pen, but you might need it actually. Let's try it. You got any more questions, or should we try the last? Got one more. Do
you know who the wrestler is that I picked earlier?
So we're going with the 80s, I think, and for some reason I see a headband. I see a headband, and I see WrestleMania. Picture a match. Or a moment with them. A headband WrestleMania, not Macho Man?
It's not Macho Man.
Not Macho Man. And you've written this down, right? So
I wrote it down, yeah. I wrote it down before we even started recording.
All right. Let's try this. We'll try something with numbers. Let me borrow your pen. Your phone for a second.
My phone?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Put it on the calculator if you can.
Okay. Open up the calculator right there. Okay.
All right, fantastic.
0.
Now I'm going to, you can't see this, right? I want to make sure you can't see this and they can't see this,
I can't
right?
See, no.
Okay. I'm going to type a number in here.
Okay.
And I'm going to send it to you.
You're going to send me a number?
I'm going to send your number. So clear your mind completely.
Okay.
Nah, I'm going to change it. Hold on. Let me change that.
My mind is completely clear. It's vacuous.
All right. I type this number in now. It's got 6 digits.
6 digits.
6 digits. I'm going to send you the first one. Write it down on that piece of paper. Write it down. You should fill a number.
Oh, I'm going to fill it. Am I hiding this from you?
You can hide it. Yeah.
Okay.
Write down that first number.
Okay.
Now the second number.
Okay.
And the third number. Now I'm going to send you all 3 together. The next 3, write them down together.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. 6
right.
numbers.
6 numbers. Completely freely. And how close are they?
They're not that close.
Not even close.
You've got one of the numbers there.
Well, let's try and salvage this, Chris, shall we?
Would you like to see what the numbers
No.
are?
This is just open this up again if you can.
Okay.
Oh
my goodness. Oh, there's my beautiful little girl, my beautiful daughter.
All right. So I've got these numbers. I'm going to hit, if you can, just hit multiply.
So the X.
Yeah, the X.
Okay, I'm going to hit the X.
And then type in your number as well.
Okay. You still don't know what my number is, right?
It's okay, I think, at this point. I think I understand what's happened.
Then what?
And then hit plus.
Plus.
And then type in a random 4-digit number.
Just any 4 digits?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then hit equals.
Okay.
You got a big number there?
Giant.
Right. Now,
Giant
hold that
numbers.
and start writing
in the
down.
billions.
I'm going to get the pad as well. I'm going to turn my back so I can't see. I want you to write that number down.
This whole number?
That whole number.
Okay. Okay. That's a big number. It's in the billions.
In the what?
What? Trillions.
Don't.
Okay.
How close are you to...
I'm done.
You're done?
Mm-hmm. I wrote it down.
No, I can't see that number now, right?
You better not be able to. There's no way.
First digit. I see the first
There's
digit.
no way. There's no way.
First digit.
Okay.
I think the first digit is a 2. And I see a...
The first digit is a 2.
I see a... I think that's a 1 and then it's a 6. No. I think it's a... It's not a 6, it's a 0. It's a 0, and then I see some numbers coming in together. I see. I see. Why am I seeing a? Seeing three ones? That doesn't make a lot of sense. No. Hold on. Here it is. I think these are repeated. 071, I think is repeated. I think that 071. There's a big 07. But I've got this bit wrong. I've got this bit wrong here. This is it's not 111. It's not 11. It's one. It's. I think that's a 4. I think that's a 4, and that's an 8. I think that's a 4, and that's an 8. I'm not 100%, but
look at this.
How close is that?
Well, that's upside. What? Oh my!
That was right.
What the heck? And I see what you've done here. Oh my gosh! Flip it over.
Incredible. You're getting ahead of yourself.
Oh.
You're getting ahead of yourself. Because it would be great if I could have somehow predicted this. Right?
It would have been great. So this is a 12-digit number.
12-digit number.
12-digit number. We're both matching here.
Now, I said earlier, didn't I? I asked you to choose a random wrestler.
Yeah. I could have chose anybody.
Could have chosen anyone. I think I was right about WrestleMania 3. I was right about the headband. But I wasn't right about Macho.
Coco Beware. Wow.
What is the chances?
How did my numbers? How did sorcery? Wait a second.
You know, it'd be even better. How could I have inspired you?
When did this happen? You were wearing...
That is magic.
When did... You were wearing your own shirt when you walked in here. The whole interview. You're wearing... We even referenced the shirt. Haven't taken a bump free since 2011. You're wearing a Coco Beware shirt. The numbers become the name. Wow. Wow. Okay.
Where do we go from here, Chris?
What kind of sorcery is this?
If you like that, come out to Nigel McGuinness's Magical Night.
Oh. How?
How indeed. And if I was to tell you, I'd have to kill you, and it would ruin the illusion.
Who would you rather kill, me or Bryan Danielson?
Well, so here's the thing. I could probably get away with killing you much more easily, right? I would think. He's far more famous.
That is absolutely true. Wow. This is brilliant. You are as brilliant with this. Look how proudly you're wearing that shirt now.
It's a fantastic shirt. You can actually get hold of them as well, you know, Pro Wrestling Tees. You can get mine as well. So there you go.
You are as brilliant as this as you are at being a speaker and the magic that you create with the words on commentary.
Well, I appreciate it, and it convinces me that you think almost as highly of me as I do myself.
I will end this with the question I ask everybody at the end. And by the way, thank you for making the time to do this. This was a pleasure, and my mind is blown. I have goosebumps all throughout my body. When you were making that 8, I went, wait a second. Wait a second. Gratitude is such a big part of my life. It's the driving force of my life. While you may be a determinist, I am a gratitudist. And I think that the more things you can be grateful for, the more things you will have to be grateful for. So what are 3 things in your life, Nigel, that you're grateful for?
Wow. Yeah, certainly my daughter, you know, my girlfriend, my job, my health.
This is far more than 3. I
was going to say it's almost impossible to stop at 3, you know, and I think that's one of the things that I am grateful for, the ability to be able to appreciate everything that you've got in life.
Yeah.
All the blessings, all the things you've given, you know. It's but arguably it's people could look at me and say, well, that's easy for you, isn't it? You know, you've kind of got a dream job and, you know, but it's been a hard journey. And I think that's certainly what everybody has to accept, is that there are going to be highs, but there's going to be lows as well. You know, and being able to sort of deal with that, I think, is a real lesson.
I would shake your hand, but I'd be afraid that doves would fly out or some sort of a rabbit would fall out of there. So I will just say thank you.
You are more than welcome. Thank you for your time, Chris.